Welcome to Morristown National Historical Park, one of the 4 national parks located in the great state of New Jersey. There are 419 national parks in the U.S. Morristown National Historical Park is quite expansive and encompasses the NJ Brigade Area, Jockey Hollow, and also the Cross Estate and Gardens. As someone who enjoys the outdoors, I fairly recently looked up the different national parks that are in the U.S., and specifically those in New Jersey, as travel is still somewhat restricted due to the pandemic, and also because traveling needs money and time off. The Cross Estate and Gardens that you see here were not there that winter of 1779 to 1780. This came later. This house was built in 1905 by John A. Benzel. It was built during a time when the wealthy would build such summer retreats in places like the Mountain Colony in Bernardsville, New Jersey. The original estate included the house that you see, the carriage house, 5-story stone water tower, and a gatehouse. In 1929, W. Redmond Cross purchased the property. His wife, Julia, made improvements to the gardens with the help of Clarence Fowler, a gardener at that time. In 1975, 162 acres were added to the National Historical Park. Unfortunately, at that time, gardens were not provided for, and they fell into disrepair. In 1977, Jean Pope began a project for restoration of these gardens, and now, today, the New Jersey Historical Garden Foundation volunteers to maintain the gardens, and the gardens are a wonderful example of an English country garden. The Cross Estate and Gardens does hold different events throughout the year. It seems like they do have an annual plant sale and some other things that go on. However, this being 2020, those things did not happen this year, have been canceled, postponed, etc. But that is something that they do. And they do have information about weddings and really professional photography and things like on the website for the Cross Estate and Gardens, which I have linked in the bio. I did see a couple with a photographer there. It looked like they were probably taking engagement photos, and then I saw one other couple, but other than that, I really had the place to myself, and it really was quite peaceful. I did see a couple indications of fall beginning, such as that, but everything was still pretty green. And even if it hadn't been, given that it's an English garden, you'd still be able to see things laid out and the way the garden's structured. What I was expecting to see was essentially hiking trails, pretty much, and signage talking about the Continental Army and the Revolutionary War. So I had done, as you can probably tell, a little bit of research before going. Most of the stuff I looked up retroactively, like after I had been there. And so I kind of just picked some paths. I looked at the map a little bit to see how long things were, so I kind of had an idea of what to expect. There was some signage about closures as Isaias, the storm, had recently come through and damaged some things such as the wooden bridge that was part of one of the trails. I decided to come up this way today because North Jersey foliage is It's supposed to be more fall-like sooner. Another thing to note, the entire time I was on this particular trail that started at the New Jersey Brigade Area, I only ever saw one other person out hiking. So I really had the trail to myself, and it was quite peaceful. And on the way back, since it was not a loop, it was a trail I had to go one way and then back, I did pick up some trash on my way back as well, just trying to take care of the national parks and just outdoor area in general. And here you see the Pacific River Bridge that has been damaged by Storm Isaias. And then this is some lovely water, so I respected the fact that the bridge was closed and I did go back the other way. And then I drove to the other area, the Jockey Hollow Visitor Center area, to see more of this national park. Here at the Jockey Hollow area of the Morristown National Historical Park, you have many hiking trails. You see the Wick Farm and garden. The Wick Farm's garden was closed, but it did have some signage on it that it is maintained to kind of reflect what would be accurate for what the farm would have been growing at that time, and also what other herbs would have been relevant to whether it's like the farm or that time period or that area. There's about 27 miles of trails. I did choose a smaller loop ultimately to do, given that I had already walked around for a bit and I also wanted to explore. All buildings were closed, including the visitor center. There was as well, but any wells were either gated off or filled in, so that way, I guess, modern day people could not pull any sort of shenanigans. For the different activities permitted at this national park, walking, hiking, obviously, trail running, I guess if someone was so inclined. Horseback riding is permitted on certain trails, not all of them. And biking is permitted only on the paved trails, so essentially the roads, right? But there are many trails. I almost took the 6.5 mile trail, the Grand Loop. But then I came to the Aqueduct Trail, and that one ultimately won me over because aqueducts mean water, and I like being near water when I'm out in the woods. So naturally, I chose the trail that promised some water, and it had all the things I liked: nature, water, bridges, and wooden boardwalks and stone things. So really, it was a good decision. The Aqueduct Trail comes with a little green brochure that you can get from the kind of like center of the trailheads, rather, but you can pick it up from other areas as well, meaning the trail, right? I only saw the brochure at the one place, though I'm assuming if the visitor center was open, you could probably find it there as well. So the Aqueduct Trail was about 1.5 miles. And the brochure just said that the trail passes over somewhat hilly terrain. However, it was not strenuous. They recommend leaving about an hour and a half to walk the trail. Given that sometimes you don't know what you're going to find in the woods, it's always kind of good advice to have to leave more time. And it is to note that this aqueduct trail does not reflect something that was there in the 1700s when Washington's troops stayed at this area. This was actually something that came around much later. So the aqueduct water system, according to the brochure, obviously is no longer in use. It was created around 1890, and its main goal was to supply safe and consistent water to the community of Morristown. Water was collected from springs and traveled through trenches to storage reservoirs. And so there are 18 lettered posts on this trail, so if you have the map, you can see them. And it does guide you through the different places that would be of note for an aqueduct system. The brochure that corresponds with the aqueduct trail is actually quite interesting. It gives you a good bit of information about the ecology of the area and also the aqueduct system. So this area, Jockey Hollow, lies in the area of New Jersey, which is known as the Highlands. So basically the Highlands are derived from Precambrian bedrock, which is over 1 billion years old. This bedrock consists mainly of granite, marble, and gneiss, is impermeable to water, and contributes to the branching pattern of streams. A lot of this area in Jockey Hollow was cleared for farming, but in the 1930s, the CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps, replanted the forest. Many different types of trees were planted, such as tulip, beech, oak, hickory, and maple. Those are all native trees to the area that grow quite nicely. One tree that isn't really present is the American chestnut, unfortunately, and that's because that tree is almost completely gone due to the chestnut blight fungus. The Aqueduct Trails brochure was revised due to a Girl Scout Gold Award project, which I definitely feel a connection to, given that I'm a lifelong Girl Scout, and I too achieved my Gold Award, although for a much different product. So, some facts that the brochure lets us know is that during the Great Depression, Lloyd Smith bought the 1,200-acre Jockey Hollow area, and he presented it to the National Park Service when Morristown National Historical Park was created in 1933. The trail also notes the American beech. American beech trees are important parts of mature forests. It's a tree that has reestablished itself and has grown quite nicely. It exists on the well-drained and shaded hillsides, has smooth gray bark, and provides food for many animals, and the wood from American beech trees is good for furniture, tool handles, flooring, and woodenware. There's also notes about exotic invaders, meaning invasive species. So some of those species are a small spiny shrub called Japanese barberry and the vine bittersweet. Both are from East Asia, and they don't have natural deterrents, just like invasive animals would not have natural predators. And so they prevent the growth of native plants because they just exist and they choke off the resources that the native plants would need. Another piece of trivia presented by the brochure is that the Morris Aqueduct Company was New Jersey's first water company. It opened in 1898, probably prompted by the hot and dry summers of 1897 and 1898. By the 1930s, the Morris Aqueduct Company was bankrupt. They couldn't provide the quality of water that residents wanted to, and so the residents stopped paying for the water supply. And that's all for this national park. I hope you go see it yourself.